And we're live. Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Authors Love Bookstores, presented by A Mighty Blaze. My name is Kimberly Hensel-Lorance, and I'm your host today. A Mighty Blaze is a volunteer effort of writers and creatives who love books and storytelling and authors in bookstores. We work to bring attention to these essential parts of our culture during COVID-19 and beyond. Authors Love Bookstores is a weekly online program that I host and produce in conjunction with fellow writer Jill Moldover. Our goal is to highlight independent bookstores across the US and Canada to tell you what makes them so special and what you can do to support their continued survival. We do this by speaking with booksellers and with the authors who love and appreciate their stores. If you're watching live with us on Facebook, welcome. Please post a question below the broadcast and we'll get to as many as we can later on. I've been so looking forward to today's episode of Authors Love Bookstores. I've been wanting to talk to these incredible women online with you for a while, so I'm thrilled they're here. So today we are welcoming best-selling author and A Mighty Blaze co-founder, Caroline Leavitt. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
And also we are thrilled to welcome Janine A. Cook. Janine is the founder of Harrietts Bookshop in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I am thrilled that you're here. Welcome, Janine.
Oh my goodness, thank y'all for having us. This is so exciting. It's so good to still be like with people, you know?
Yeah.
It's so good to still connect. So thank you.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a little bit about these incredible women before we get into our conversation. Caroline is the award-winning and New York Times and USA Today best-selling author of 11 novels, including With or Without You, which came out last year. It's terrific. Caroline's books can regularly found on all the best of lists, from trendsetters like Bookpage, the San Francisco Chronicle, Kirkus, the Providence Journal, Bookmarks Magazine, and so many others I can't list here. Her books have been optioned for films. They've been translated into many languages. In addition to being a novel writer, Caroline also writes a column for Psychology Today. Her essays, stories, book reviews, and articles have appeared in a number of publications. Again, too many to list here, but things like Salon, New York Times, Publishers Weekly, People, Real Simple, New York Magazine, Washington Post, and many anthologies. She's a screenwriter as well and teaches novel writing at both Stanford and UCLA. She also works with writers privately. In addition to all of this, as I mentioned at the start, she's a co-founder of A Mighty Blaze and a champion of writers everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you.
Janine, in addition to being a bookseller and the founder of Harrietts Bookshop, she is also a writer, and she writes about the complex intersections of motherhood, activism, and the arts. Her pieces have been featured in a number of publications, also too many to list today, or we'd be here forever, but including Mothering Magazine, Girl God, Mahogany Baby, and the Good Mother Project. She is currently producing an art installation of her writings deconstructed into paper, art sculptures, collages, and calligrams called Conversations with Harriet. She's also an educator and a community activist, having worked in Nairobi, Kenya, and Birmingham, England, where she facilitated art and social change workshops with youth from all over the world.
Yeah, wow.
I love the path that people take to becoming booksellers. It's always so unique and so special.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
So I should start by saying the mail just came at my house, and in the mail was a package of books I had just ordered from Harrietts Bookshop. So I'm a fan of this bookstore. I love what the bookstore stands for. And Janine, can you tell our viewers about your store? You're coming up on 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
Your store has a very important mission and inspiration. Please tell us about the origins of the store, your goals.
Sure. So Harriet's Bookshop, folks are often like, "Are you Harriet?" And I say, "I wish." But we are named for Harriet Tubman, the historic heroine who, you know, is the guiding light of the work that we do. And our mission here celebrates women authors, women artists, and women activists. And that was not a very cool mission just a little over a year ago, right? Like folks were like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean you're gonna not, are you gonna not have men shop at your bookshop? And I was like, I never said that. I was like, well, are you gonna not have, what about white people? They're not gonna come there? And I was like, well, the people are entitled. And then, fast forward over the summer, there was a huge surge in understanding about ignorance and folks that decided that they wanted to do some self-work, and books happen to be the best way to do that. And we've been able to sustain ourselves through what probably has been the craziest year of all of our lives, just simply off of that work and that mission.
And to be clear, that your store celebrates women writers and activists, but you sell books by men.
Yeah, so our bookshop, mostly you will see books written by women. Mostly you will see books written by Black women. But that is not all, right? And every month the collection changes just slightly. So it's a highly curated collection that changes monthly based on different themes. Yes. And so it's our version of a bookstore. It's slightly different. It lives somewhere in the realm between a classroom, a museum, a bookstore, and a woman's circle. So it's a lot of things all at once, but yeah.
Love it. Caroline, you have visited a lot of independent bookstores in your career, I am sure. What makes indies so special? What role do they play in celebrating the career of an author like yourself?
Well, you know what? It's. I was just thinking about this. It's that an indie bookstore is like a human being to me, and that each bookstore has a personality, and it's such a different experience because you really feel connection. And even in the pandemic, I did 3 different events, two for other writers and one for myself at Print Bookstore up in Maine. And by the time I did the 3rd one, I felt like I was best friends with Gracie, the events coordinator. And it just made me feel so great. Just this morning, I got a newsletter from my local Little City Books, which is 2 blocks away. And the newsletter was so funny and so warm and so personal that I said, well, I'm going to order $80 worth of books right now because they're recommending it. And you don't get that if you order from Amazon or Barnes and Noble. You don't get that. You just sort of get, even when they promote a book, there's money behind the promotion. It's not like a bookseller saying, you know what, you would really like this book. I put this aside because I know you would like it. And then you love it. And then it makes you more loyal and you want to go there. It's just a very different connection. And they really support writers as much as they support readers.
And that's that curation you're talking about feeds into what you were saying, Janine, that each month at Harrietts Bookshop, you curate a different number of books for your community, your customers. What might be something that goes into making those decisions? People love to know the sort of art of book selling and hand selling. So how is it that you choose the books that you choose? Do you have a sort of goal for the whole year? Do you kind of like go with the flow? How do you make those decisions?
It's a little bit of a mix. What we do is that every month we're working with a different artist here in the space. And so her and I are thinking about the intersections that we have and where we want to, like what theme we want to explore together.
Okay.
Now things were slightly off, of course, this year because of COVID. And so for many months this year, we were taking our entire collection outside, and we would take all the shelves, we would take all of the art, we would take all of the books, and we would, build a bookstore on the corner. And so it was a little bit different because it wasn't as though we had the space the way we originally wanted to. But yeah, we're thinking a lot about this place of partnership, this place of collaboration, this place of like, how can we play out intersectionality in real life, right? Like, how can we be examples of that?
And what about the community that you're based in? You were a brand new bookstop when COVID happened. Mm-hmm. So what role did they play during this time of closures and openers and not being kind of open or on the street or in the store? How did your community come into your store and participate in the process?
Yeah, I mean, so the community has been a huge part. I mean, like with any bookstore, I would say is like, the community is, there will be no point in doing this if we weren't doing it in conversation, right? Like if it wasn't a dance between us and the folks that we are working with here. And community has meant a lot of things because in some ways I moved into a neighborhood that had a really sordid racial history. If for folks who don't know, Fishtown has had a lot of issues. It was a place that was known for bat wielding and like scaring folks off with bats, beating people up with bats. Oh, wow. I had 2 customers coming here and tell me that when they were teenagers, they were, ran out of this community with that. And so, and like, we're still kind of concerned about coming back and really concerned for me even being in this neighborhood. And so I think we are here at the perfect time. No coincidences, right? It just so happened that we come into a neighborhood that is in this flux in at a time where society is in such a very interesting position to make decisions about who we want to be moving forward. And so it's been pretty awesome because the people who are standing up for a subversion of some of these oppressive systems are here, and we're here to support them by making sure they have the books, but then they're supporting us by making sure we get to stick around.
It's really this idea that a bookstore is a microcosm of society at whole, at large, isn't it?
Yeah.
The ideas that we struggle with as a society, you sort of see reflected in a bookstore and what people buy and the conversations they have.
And what I was hoping for when we opened was that we would be a place, like I was like, where are the civic spaces, right? Like, where are the places where you talk about these ideas of freedom and like, what does it mean to have justice for all? And like, where are those spaces now? And I think that bookstores get to be those spaces, especially if you're open and able to facilitate the dialogue, because people are, you have the materials, you have the texts. And now you can actually open up the conversations. If you want to, you don't have to, but you can. And I really appreciate that part.
There was this great story that you shared on your team shared on social media about $200 that was hidden in a book. Can you tell this story? I don't know, Caroline, do you know this story?
No, I don't. That sounds great.
Oh, it's so cute. Yeah. So like I said, we was all summer, spring, we were taking everything outside. So again, we have no idea how this happened, but one day a customer came over, she's like in tears, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I can't believe you did this. And I'm like, what? And she's just like, there was $200 was hidden in my book. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I didn't do that. And she was just like, really? Wow. She was like, who did it? I was like, I have no idea who did it. And then I called the author thinking maybe he'd done it. I was just like, okay, maybe he put the $200 in thinking like, this is a way to promo because he's an independent Philly author. He was just like, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And so we don't know, but I love to use that as an example of the type of space that it is. You feel the love here. You definitely do. And it does. I do feel like in a lot of ways it's feeding the community and feeding those types of interactions.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's such a great story. I love it.
It's like this moment of grace and kindness, like a reminder of how you can share it with others. Yeah, I thought it was so beautiful. Another thing that's beautiful is Caroline's novel. I have to talk about this book. Caroline, what was it like to you and Janine share a very similar experience? She has running a bookstore, opening a bookstore as a pandemic hits. You're launching a book as a pandemic hits. What has this experience been like for you to have this beautiful book come out at this very unbeautiful time?
I'm a very driven, kind of positive person. And the pandemic started, the lockdown came just as I was about to fly to Texas and speak to 100 librarians. And I had memorized my whole speech, right down to the hand movements. And I was so upset when my publisher called me and said, everything's canceled. And I remember hanging up the phone thinking, that can't be right. That can't be right that everything's canceled. Nothing is canceled. So I made a video of my speech and I sent it to Algonquin saying, look, this is what they're all missing. And they said, oh, this is really great. We're going to send it to all the libraries. And I started to think, well, if I could do this for me, I bet I could do it for others. So I just put up a little snippet on Facebook thinking, maybe 4 people would want to do it, saying, look, if you make me a little 2-minute video, shout out an indie bookstore, shout out another author who has a book out, I'll put it up on my blog and I'll get it all over social media. I got 200 requests in the first few days. I was absolutely like, on the one hand, it was great because I wasn't sitting there feeling sorry for myself and I was doing something good for other people. But it was so overwhelming. And then the Washington Post got word of it, and Ron Charles called me and said, Caroline, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know. I really don't know. And then lucky for me, my friend Jenna Blum called me up and said, would you like some help? And I said, yes, please. So then we created Mighty Blaze. And once we created that, everything started to explode for me. And it wasn't just that, I wasn't thinking about, oh, I should go out and get this bookstore or that or do that. I was more going out saying, I want to promote this author. I want to make sure we do this. What should we do in Mighty Blaze? We need to hire more people. And then all of a sudden, bookstores and event places were contacting my publicist saying, oh, we want to do an event. We want to do an event. And I ended up having many more events on Zoom than I ever did in a real life book tour. I'm still doing events, and that book came out at the beginning of August. So it's actually been okay. I've met just as many people as I would have in person, and I've gone to a lot of different bookstores, which has been wonderful. And of course, I miss the interaction. I can't wait until that comes back because I like seeing the real bookstore and being there. But in terms of promotion and publicity, it's been okay. It's a very weird time, but it's been okay for me. And I feel like I have to try my best to make it be okay for everybody else, for other authors and for bookstores.
And you're continuing to write your next book during this time.
Yeah, I sold like an idiot. I thought, oh, well, I don't want to be obsessed about reviews and stuff when my book comes out. So I'll start thinking about a new book. And I wrote the first 70 pages and the outline, and I gave it to Chuck, my editor. And I thought, and then he bought it that week. And I thought, oh, shoot, now I have to write the damn thing. So I'm on a deadline, and I'm trying to get it written, but that's hard.
It is hard. And Janine, in addition to running the bookstore, you are a writer as well. How do you balance book selling and writing, your community activism, your art? How do you find space for all of these various passions?
Yeah, I was just tweeting at the other day. It was like, I wish I had more hours in the day. I heard that Caroline teaches screenwriting. I just got accepted into a screenwriting residency. Yes.
Great.
And then I'm in an MFA program. I'm an educator. I'm a mom. I'm doing a lot, and I don't know that I'm doing balance. I think I'm just doing what I can, when I can, how I can. I'm so super forgiving of myself. I try to be. For the things that I just can't do that I really would like to do, but I can't. I had a friend who was like, oh, I want to come over to the bookshop and like drink tea with you. And I'm like, okay. But she was like 5 minutes later, I was like, I got to go to this and then I got to do that, So it's a different level of life, but I feel so fulfilled. I feel so, you know what I mean? I feel filled up. And so whether that's from this or that, or this, from the bookstore or from the writing, or like the fact that my books are even selling, or that, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, it's so much to be grateful for.
Because you're giving to yourself as well as to the community. And I think that's, it's like the serpent that bites its tail. It's like it goes around and around. So it's always something. But I think that forgiving yourself is really important because you can't do it all. You just do what you can do.
I do what I do. And then, and I think that I get to be okay with, like, Janine, maybe you're just in your own little lane, and your lane is made up a lot of little lanes. Because I was telling on another interview, I was saying, like, once upon a time I had a boyfriend, and he was just like, you're never going to do well because you're always trying to do too many things at once. Like, you need to find one thing and do it. And I was just like, I tried, but it just don't work like that for me.
Right. Me either.
I am many things, and I enjoy wearing many hats, and I enjoy dipping my hands in a lot of different worlds. And so it is what it is.
It is what it is. It's true. When my kids were born, a very wise friend told me, that the life of a woman was not a balancing act. It was a juggling act. Mm-hmm. And the goal was just not to drop the thing that was the most breakable, right? You could drop things and it was fine and they're probably not that important. But remember, keep your eye on what's the most critical, right? And don't drop those. But balance was just something people made up for marketing.
I tried that. I really do. And it's just I do what I can. That's really it. And the people who support me, I really appreciate them and I dote over them and I really thank them so much because there are people who make it possible for me to do what I'm doing.
That's excellent. So tell us a little bit about what's popular in the bookstore right now. What's selling? What are people buying? What are you recommending?
Yeah.
Caroline, I'm going to ask you this question too.
Black Futures. I don't know if you all did you all see Black Futures yet? It's an art book.
Oh, yes, I have seen it.
Kimberly Drew, you saw me because I posted it and her and I also did a live together, which I was like, my mind is blown. But
I have seen it.
But yeah, so I'm actually have a copy right there. I'm gonna go grab it. But this absolutely beautiful book that came out at the very same time as Obama's book. And I couldn't believe that her book would compete so well with Obama's book, right? I thought that Obama was just gonna blow every other book out the water. And their book has done really, really well in the shop. And that's one that I'm recommending for folks. You can read it. It's like a find your own adventure almost, right? Because there's all these different ways that you can navigate the book. Whether it's like you want to navigate by color or do you want to navigate by font or do you want to navigate by photo? It's like just beautiful, 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 beautiful. And so that one's doing really well. I'm looking around, thinking about what else is doing really well. This month, as we move into Black History Month, I have a feeling that there are going to be a lot of really powerful texts that raise up. In Philly, Jericho Brown's tradition is our one book for the city. So of course that's doing really well. And it's the first time that the city's ever done a poetry book as the one book. And for it to be by a Black Southern gay male, there's all of these great conversations that get to exist as a result. But so people are coming in and grabbing that a bunch because it's one book for the city. And I'm looking around. Oh, so Ida B. the Queen is coming out. I don't know if you all know.
I saw that. I bought that from the
it came out yesterday.
Yeah, I just bought it from
it came out yesterday. And so I actually was like texting Michelle Duster, like, oh my God, I'm such a huge fan. I love you. And she wrote me back. And so whenever I get a response, I'm like, oh my goodness. But so it was very cool. I think that book is going to do awesome. I am excited about Ida's legacy. I'm excited about her being at the forefront and busting in Black History Month and thinking about what it means to have been an activist in the 1800s, a Black woman activist in the 1800s.
Can you imagine?
And so I think that she's going to give us a lot of inspiration this year.
Excellent. And obviously for our viewers who are watching who want other recommendations for books, you can go to your website, harriettsbookshop.com.
We have lots of lists, so if you want to, and then I'm also I'm around. That's me on Instagram, that's me on Twitter, that's me on Facebook. So if you want to talk to me, you can. And I prefer to give a very pointed recommendation. So it's hard for me to do a blanket recommendation.
Yeah. But that's a really interesting comment about the way that COVID has changed the way you interact with your customers, right? That's before people would just walk in, which they still can do, but obviously in a masked, kind of socially distant environment. But the fact that people can ask you a question on social media also brings sort of an immediacy in this time.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even have an online store when we opened. I was so boutique, so it's going to be very, very particular, and I wasn't even, I wasn't even thinking about online. I don't even know how we would be if we didn't have it now. It became essential to us to have that online store. And then our social media as well, we went from 3,000 followers to 30,000 followers in a week.
Wow.
So it was it was just boom. And so it was also a learning curve because like I said, now the bookshop feels like you have 3 bookshops, right? You have an online store, you have a physical brick and mortar, but then you also have this curbside in between thing that's always going on. So yeah, I'm still learning. I'm still learning big time.
Excellent. Caroline, what are you reading? What
Well,
are you buying? You just said you bought a whole bunch of books. What
I
are you
did. You
recommending?
know what? I bought three books that I guess I had heard about Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. I bought that. And then the newsletter was just so charming that I brought what they suggested, which was The Hair by Melanie Finn and Faye Faraway by Helen Fisher. But the books, because I review books, I'm always sort of reading 3 months ahead of when books are there. But I'm really looking forward to Gillian Cantor's Beautiful Little Fools, which is the story of Great Gatsby told by the women in the book. So yeah, I'm really interested in that. And I also am dying to read Vindela Vita's We Run the Tides. I just got a galley of that. So that's exciting. What else did I read? Oh, I read Elizabeth McCracken, who's going to be on here Friday with her husband, Edward Carey. Their books are great. The Swallowed Man by Edward Carey is so bizarre. It's sort of about like Jonah and the whale, and it's his story, and it's wonderful. And I also loved David Duchovny's Truly Like Lightning, which was about race and class and Mormons and the desert and cowboys and modern life in Hollywood, and just great, just exhilarating read.
Excellent. Janine, here's a question for you. Finish this sentence for us. Running a successful bookstore and everything that you do is, because you do much more than that, is part hard work, part luck, and part what else?
Ooh, tears.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm telling folks all the time, I was like, I think that people get this perception like this is like, I'm like, this is some like, it's a real, like, I got to get down on my knees sometimes, and whether that's because I have to scrub gum off the floor or, or a toilet has overflowed or, there's trash or anything, like it's very, very, very humbling.
Yeah.
Very humbling to sit with people. I had a woman come in once. So she was just like, she came in, she's in tears. And I'm just like, what's okay? You okay? And she was just like, I am not okay. I said, okay, that's okay. You don't have to be okay. And she was just like, I just ran into my mother outside like at the corner. And I was like, okay. Like, she was just like, I haven't seen my mother in like 20 years. Oh. And she was just like, and she was with the guy that she left us for.
Oh.
And so the bookshop is so many things. It's so many things, and all I could do was just stand there with her. And, I had some journals. I was like, I'm going to give you a journal. I'm going to give you homework and require that you write about this moment. And
that's wonderful.
I mean, and because I was a teacher for many years before this. And so that's what I would do if it was one of my students. And I was just like, because this is essential. This is essential. You might want to pass this down to your children. And also it'll help release some of the pain. And so, the bookstore is so many things, but I would say, yeah, tears is definitely wrapped up all up in there, whether those are tears of joy or tears of like, sorrow.
What a mirror your bookstore is, or really any bookstore, a mirror to what's going on outside.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Very much so. Very much so.
And a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't know if we think about that when we think about bookstores, right? We think it's where we go and buy puzzles and like birthday presents, right? But you're describing the bookstore as like a very different role in our communities, as a place of.
I think that there's a spiritual element to what it is that we're doing here, right? And whether that's like, I'm not necessarily, somebody said, it's almost like a sanctuary for the and that's what books do provide, right? And so you get the word and you get an opportunity to congregate, but it's very different because it's not religious in any way. It's something different altogether, but it's still doing something really good for your soul.
Oh, that's so profound. Mm-hmm. It explains why they're so important to us, these places, and why this sort of pandemic with so many bookstores being closed was so painful, right? That sort of loss of connection, the loss of being challenged and learning, and and the bookstore is open now in a limited capacity or full time? How are you surviving?
Thursday through Sunday. and we have limited browsing, so you can't just sit and hang out, but you can come in. Through the pandemic, we went from 500 square feet because we just had this one little room. We applied for a grant that we got, and so we were able to expand. So we did what we call the underground, right? And so the underground has a whole other set of books down there, and then we have a children's room now. And then we had a friend come in and he built us an outdoor bookshop outside in the backyard. And so in the spring, summer, it's such a thing. It has like this tarp and all these plants, and it's just, we got the little fire pit back there now. And so again, just an opportunity to kind of to be a space of solace. It's not, we're in the city. It's not a lot of quiet, so it's one of those places I hope for people.
So Caroline, you talked a little bit about how you were doing more events now in the Zoom world than you did before.
Well, yeah, because they can stuff in 4 events in one day when they're Zoom, and if you're getting on a plane, that's usually 2 days, 1 day to get there, and then you're in the hotel, and then you do the event, and then you get on another plane. So there's a lot of stress that's actually missing.
Right. What do you think will happen when this is all over? I guess I'm like hoping one day it'll be all over, so we can come back together. What will happen? Will
I don't know. I'm sort of hoping that there'll be a hybrid, that we can go to bookstores and do events, and that we can, go to book festivals and that kind of stuff, which is always so much fun. But then also that, if your publisher doesn't feel like paying for you to fly to California from New York, you can always do a Zoom there. So it's still a way that you can still support the bookstores, you can still talk to your audiences. It's sort of like auxiliary. It's not the real deal, but it's something beside that. But I think like when bookstores open up again for real, people are going to be, just crowding in there. I can't wait. There's just something about walking in there. I was telling somebody yesterday that now I can go into my local, but only for like 20 minutes. So as soon as I walk in there, I start feeling, oh, I only have 20 minutes. What am I gonna do? What I usually like to do is have like an hour or so, just wandering around the bookstore, sitting around, reading a little bit, and then buying something. And that will definitely come back because I think people love that.
And Janine, I know that part of your mission for your store was to do live events, to bring people together. Do you still have that as a goal when this is all?
Yeah, we do, and we never stopped doing it. What we did was we said, we needed to still be a cultural hub. And so one of the things we did is we had like a 6-piece band that came and played on the sidewalk, because we would do the sidewalk sale. And so everything was all spread apart, but it was almost like you're like in this marketplace because everything's spread out, and then you got this band that they're spread out, but we're on a sidewalk, so it's it was still like a really, a cultural experience. We had a DJ who came for Juneteenth. And so that DJ played outside. It was just, it was very lively. We had a drum circle that just popped up. They just said that they wanted to drum out here. I said, okay, drum, And so it was been a very cultural experience. And then when we reopened, we all throughout the month of December, every Sunday, November and December, we had a violinist who would come in and they would play live violin while people shopped. And so again, for us, it was okay. We had part of our mission is to celebrate women artists, and I understand deeply how they were struggling during this moment, right? And you can't perform, struggling on an emotional level and then also financial. And so we just tried to figure out different ways to continue to support them. And it didn't, for us, it didn't have to look like anything else. It didn't have to look like anything we'd ever seen before. It's like, it's okay to be different. It's okay to try something new. It's okay to fail. It's okay to, do something really dope and see what happens. So we did. Well, yeah, so yes, we will continue. I mean, we'll be able to have more people together, right? We couldn't really do our author events, but we even would have we had 2 readings outside on the corner. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, we had a big circle outside, and we had 2 readings out there, and so
you're showing us definitely how to be creative in this time.
Definitely, definitely.
In this very difficult time, how to thrive and how to bring people together and create that beautiful environment.
Yeah, I tell people, I say, we can't stand together, but we can stand together. And so we got to figure out ways to do that.
Right.
We're coming to the end, but I have a question for you, Janine. One of our audience members listening to you talk says that you must have been a very caring teacher. And he or she, I'm not sure which one, is curious about the link between teaching and bookselling. How does having been an educator informs you as a bookseller? What's the symbiosis there?
There's so many levels to it, right? So I worked with young people who had dropped out of high school. So my young people were older youth who were often under educated, honestly, and they were very, very strong-willed. Right. And so it was either they were strong-willed because they were coming back to do this thing and against the odds, or they recognized that there were holes in the system that they were being handed. And they were like, listen, I'm going to go find what I need for myself. A lot of my students were educated. A lot of my students were parents. And so we really had to, for me, it came down to making this a community environment and making it as safe as possible so that learning could happen, because people cannot learn when they feel like they're in survival mode. And so, there's a lot of stories out there about me and my students, right? Where there's stories where I used to stand up on the tables and I would get so excited about the lesson. I'd be so excited. I'm like, did you see what they just said here? And everybody would be cracking up like, she is she is loving it. We would, one time we did 4 color girls who, by Ntozake Shenga, and we bought all the classes together, right? And so we were doing graphic design and we were doing English and we were blending these worlds. And so I think that, very much so, it all connects. I think that recognizing that education is not something that just happens in 4 walls, right. And that it means a whole lot for folks to self-educate and to get on their own path. That means a lot to me. And then meeting people where they are, anybody could walk in my classroom at any point, and I needed to be able to meet them where they were. And that's the same thing with the bookstore. I have customers who are feel safe enough to say that they're not very good readers, right? I can't read, I'm not very good at it, or I've been out of practice for so long. And I think that that's the job of an educator, is to support somebody wherever they are.
Janine, I'm so grateful for the chance to have met you.
Oh, yes.
And to hear the wonderful work that you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing this little insight into Harrietts Bookshop. And Caroline, I love you, so I'm so happy you're here.
I appreciate y'all. Thanks so much for bringing us together.
Thank you. And thank you, Janine, for all you do. I have relatives in Philadelphia, and I am so going to come to your bookstore and see you in person and buy a ton of books too.
Oh, good.
I want to remind all our viewers that you can support Harrietts Bookshop by going to harriettsbookshop.com. They have a great online store. They have amazing merchandise. So you can follow them on social and find out all the great things that they're doing. The content you share on social is really interesting too. So it's not, it's not just a follow. I think there's a lot of thought-provoking things there as well. So I definitely recommend that. And of course, you can buy Caroline's book from Harrietts Bookshop as well. We'll have the link below the broadcast for you to go ahead and click the link and buy it. And you can find out more about Caroline's upcoming events and everything else she's doing on her website, which is carolineleavitt.com. And of course, we thank you so much for joining us here on A Mighty Blaze's Authors Love Bookstores. We love having you here, and thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be back next week for another episode. Until then, be well and keep reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.